Almost every country on Earth is in debt at the same time. The United States, Germany, India, the UK, Brazil, France, Japan, all of them, owing money right now. And that's a strange picture when you stop and look at it. Because if literally everyone owes money, then who is everyone paying back? Where's the giant pile of cash that all these countries are borrowing from? That question sounds simple. The answer flips most people's whole idea of what national debt even is. Here's why it matters to you today. If you have a pension, a retirement account, money in a bank, or even just a savings bond from your grandmother, congratulations, you are already a lender to a government. You're holding the other end of the rope. So when the news shows that giant red debt clock spinning, part of what it's counting is money owed to people exactly like you. So let's not memorize numbers. Let's build a town. One small town will explain the entire global debt system. And by the end, you'll be able to look at any country and know who it really owes, and whether that debt is scary or boring. Welcome to O-Town. There's one main building in the middle. Town Hall. Town Hall runs the place. It pays for the roads, the school, the fire truck, the pensions for retired townsfolk. And here's the thing about Town Hall. Almost every year, it spends a little more than it collects in taxes. That yearly shortfall has a name. We'll call it the gap. Economists call it the budget deficit. It's not the total debt. It's just this year's missing piece. Money out is a bit more than money in. So Town Hall has a choice. Cut services, raise taxes, or cover the gap some other way. It almost always picks the other way. And here's how it does it. This is where most beginners picture the wrong thing. They imagine Town Hall begging a rich villain for a loan. That's not what happens. Instead, Town Hall prints a small paper slip. The slip says, "Lend us $100 today and we'll pay you back later," plus a little thank you fee on top. That slip is a government bond. In America, they're called treasuries. Same idea everywhere. A printed promise to repay, with a bit of interest. That thank you fee, the interest, is the reward for handing over your money now and waiting. Remember that fee. It comes back later, and it's the part that can actually bite. So now Town Hall walks out to the town marketplace, holding a tray of these IOU slips. And here's the question that unlocks everything. Who actually buys them? Here's the part most people get completely wrong. They assume the buyers are foreign, that some other country must be holding all the debt. So let's walk the marketplace and meet the buyers in order. Because there are 3 of them. And the first one is going to surprise you. First in line, the townsfolk. The ordinary residents of O-Town. That's you. When you put money in a pension fund, that fund needs somewhere safe to park it, so it buys government IOU slips. When you own a bond fund, or money market fund, or even when your bank holds reserves, slips. Insurance companies, retirement funds, regular savers. They're all standing in this line, buying the town's debt because it's one of the safest places to keep money. So the very first lenders to the government are the government's own citizens. Sit with that for a second. When the debt clock goes up, a big chunk of that is the town owing money to its own people's savings. Second in line, a quiet door at the back of Town Hall. That's the town's own bank, the central bank, the Federal Reserve in America, the European Central Bank in Europe, the Bank of Japan in Japan. This backroom bank can create new money tokens, and it uses them to buy big batches of the town's slips, especially in a crisis. So now the town is partly lending to itself through its own bank. Hold that thought, because a town that owes its own bank is in a very different position from a town that owes a stranger. Third in line, and only third, neighbors from other towns. These are foreign investors and foreign governments, people who drive in from across the road because O-Town slips are trusted and pay a steady fee. Yes, this line is real. Countries like China and Japan hold large piles of US slips. But here's the twist nobody expects. For most big economies, this out-of-town line is the smallest of the 3, not the biggest. So let's do the thing the headlines never do. Let's follow the slips. You leave Town Hall, and you trace where every IOU actually ended up. And you watch most of them curve right back into the town. Into the townsfolk's pension funds. Into the savers. Into the backroom bank. Only a slice walks across the road to the neighbors. And there it is. The answer to our opening question. Who does a country owe? Mostly itself. Take Japan. the most indebted big country on the planet. Almost all of its enormous debt is owed to its own people and its own central bank. Japan basically owes Japan. The US owes a chunk abroad, but still owes most of it at home. This is the sentence that makes the whole map click. A country's debt isn't a hole in the ground. It's a stack of somebody else's savings. And usually, those somebodies live in the same country. Now you might be thinking, okay, but the total number is still gigantic. Doesn't the town eventually have to pay all of it back? And this is where another myth quietly falls apart. Town Hall almost never pays the whole tab off. When an old slip comes due, Town Hall just hands the holder a brand new slip to replace it. The debt doesn't get cleared, it gets rolled over, rolled forward, again and again, year after year. As long as people keep accepting new slips, the tab can roll on basically forever. A country isn't a household that has to be debt-free by retirement. It doesn't retire. It just keeps rolling. So if the size of the debt isn't the real story, what is? Let's walk over to the town square, because there's a scoreboard there, and that scoreboard is what grown-ups actually watch. The scoreboard doesn't show the raw debt. It shows the debt compared to the town's yearly income, how much the whole town earns in a year. Economists call that income GDP, and this scoreboard is the debt-to-GDP ratio. Why compare? Because a $100,000 debt means nothing to a billionaire and everything to a student. Same with countries. A big tab on a big income can be perfectly calm, and this is where beginners panic at the wrong number. Japan's scoreboard reads way over 100%. Its debt is more than double its yearly income. And yet Japan hasn't collapsed. Why? Because of everything we just walked through. It owes itself, in its own currency, to patient citizens, and it can roll the debt forward. The number looks terrifying. The situation is stable. It's not how big the tab is. It's whose money it is. And that second part, the currency, is the most important thing in this whole town. So let's cross the river, because there's another neighborhood, and this is the one that actually sinks. Everything we've seen so far works, because Town Hall borrows in its own money. The money its own bank can create. If things ever got truly desperate, the backroom bank could, in the worst case, create tokens to cover the slips. It's a painful escape hatch, but it exists. Now picture a smaller town that can't do that. A town that had to borrow using another town's currency, dollars it does not print and cannot create. When the bill comes due, it can't just roll it over at home. It has to earn or buy dollars it doesn't have. There's no escape hatch. That's the debt that triggers real crises. Places like Argentina or Greece, which gave up control of its own currency. The danger was never just the size of the number. The danger is owing money you can't create to people who can walk away. So now you can see why every country is in debt at the same time, and why that's not the contradiction it looked like at the start. Because one town's IOU is another town's nest egg. The debt and the savings are the same piece of paper, seen from two ends. Pension funds need safe assets to hold, and government slips are the safest asset around. Banks need them. Foreign countries park their spare cash in them. The world doesn't just tolerate government debt. It demands it, because that debt is where the world stores its savings. If every government paid off every slip tomorrow, all that safe savings would simply vanish. One country's debt is another person's retirement. Now let's bring this all the way home to your money. The interest fee on all those slips. It's paid out of taxes. So when rates rise, a bigger slice of the country's budget goes just to the thank you fee, which can crowd out other spending. If you've ever wondered why governments care so much about interest rates, that's a huge part of it. And the slips themselves are probably already working for you. Inside your pension, your bond fund, your insurance policy. If you've ever seen government bonds in your retirement account and skipped past it, that line is you, standing in the first marketplace line, being the lender. You're not just watching this town, you live here. So here's the map to keep. Town Hall spends a bit more than it collects, covers the gap with IOU slips, and sells those slips mostly to its own people and its own bank, with some neighbors across the road. The tab rarely gets paid off. It gets rolled forever. And whether it's safe or scary comes down to two questions. Whose money is it, and what currency is it in? Owe itself in its own currency? Boring. Owe strangers in a currency it can't print? Dangerous. The one sentence to remember: national debt isn't a hole the country fell into. It's a mountain of the world's savings. And most of the time, a country owes that mountain to itself. If who does every country owe now feels less like a mystery, you've got the map. That's what this channel is here for. Turning the scary, confusing corners of finance into simple maps you can actually walk through. For more simple maps of finance, subscribe.